Welcome to First Strike right here on VSiN. I'm your host, Dave Ross, and for the next hour, we are talking all things UFC 268 from the Mecca, Madison Square Garden in New York on Saturday night, and what a card we have on display. Of course, we've got a couple title bouts, and we're going to talk very in-depth conversations about with Kamaru Usman against Colby Covington and Rose Namajunas against Weili Zhang. So Rose right now a small favorite, a small dog at plus 100. Colby Covington, the big dog at plus 250. Kamaru minus 320 on the comeback to keep his reign going at the welterweight division. Of course, we're going to have Nick Kalikas, Amber Dixon, Reed Kuhn, and Jordan Sherwood throughout this hour to break down everything from a gambling standpoint. But again, this card is so deep on the main card here. After you get past the two title events, you got Shane Burgos against Billy Q, you got Frankie Edgar against Marlon Vera, and you got Justin Gaichey, the highlight, against Michael Chandler. So there are so many betting options to get to, and let's start that conversation right now with Nick Kalikas, who sets those lines right here at Circa Sportsbook. Nick, boy, we had UFC 267 last week. We don't get any time off. Right back to a massive card in New York City this weekend with 268. Let's look back to last weekend's card at 267. How did the books make out with the big underdog cashing as the new light heavyweight champion of the world?
Saved our butts, to be honest with you. I mean, because it was a favorite type of card, right? And I mean, let's face it. We kind of knew and expected that going into it, that if all the parlays started hitting and all the favorites, all the chalk was hitting, it was going to be probably an ugly night. But thank you, Glover. I mean, that was a huge upset, and the way he went about it is freaking awesome. I mean, the finish that he had, and he deserves it. I mean, we were talking about it for a while. I mean, he's been around the sport for so long, finally getting that opportunity in the right time, and he got it done. So
yeah, it was amazing to see, because it was almost a demolition of Jan Blachowicz. I don't think we expected that. I was on the side of Teixeira there, but again, it was more kind of rooting for the older guy to do well. He looks fantastic. Let's see how long that reign potentially could last. Let's talk about a reign that's in progress right now with Kamaru Usman. And I know I look back in the first fight against Colby Covington, and it was very competitive until the jaw got wired shut there by the champ, and then it got stopped in the fifth and final round there as the Nigerian Nightmare got that win. Now he's a huge favorite that you guys have instilled here at minus 320. What have you seen any money coming in on the American Challenger?
Not as much. I mean, we are getting some sharp action, of course, on Colby Covington as the price kind of climbs up right now, but the initial action was on Usman, and it betted up to over minus 300 now, where you're seeing it market wide. But I opened the line minus 265 immediately. Like I said, heavy, sharp action coming in on Usman's side. Then parlays, of course. Everybody's throwing Usman in parlays. I mean, you got to expect that. So, but like I said, once it reached a certain point, we did get sharp action and buyback on Colby Covington. So it's good to see, and I think we will continue to see two-way sharp action on this fight.
And of course, Nick, you did great work. UFC On the Line on UFC Fight Pass. Got to check out Nick there. Let's talk a little bit more about this, because when I look at it, I say, boy, the line feels too big for me when I look at the two best welterweights in the world. What style of fight? Are you seeing any prop plays come in as far as overs on the rounds? Because I think people think we're going to see a repeat, and this might go to a decision this time. Didn't get all the way there the first time, but I think people are banking on a decision this time.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of the sharper action, and the sharper minds are kind of trending toward the over as well. And I think that's kind of correlated to the Covington side, if you're going to have any value, if you're going to look for any value there, because obviously both these guys can win on the scorecards. It's going to be another competitive fight. But I mean, the plus 400, plus 500 that's out there on Covington is pretty tempting there for sure at that spot. So it is trending on the over 3.5 rounds, and I think that's probably right. I hope we get to see it go that long, because it should be a phenomenal fight.
Yeah, it should. So there again, you see the total rounds 3.5 right now, juiced to the over at minus 150. Let's go to the co-main event, and what a fight this should be with Rose against Zhang Weili here in their rematch. And again, I know there was some bad blood and some animosity in the first fight as Rose gets the belt, but she's never defended the belt. This is the second time she's been the champion at 115 pounds, and it feels like right now Weili Zhang is starting to take a lot of the action.
She is. I mean, honestly, I opened at minus 115 when the market was the other way. So basically, virtually a pick 'em anyway, right? Not much difference of where it's at now. Minus 120, minus 125 is out there for Zhang. But we got ahead of it a little bit. And I think just, the first fight, she was close to a minus 200 favorite. It was kind of a flash knockout type of situation. Not that it was lucky. I mean, right. Rose deserved to win that fight the way she did. It was phenomenal. But at the same time, I expect this fight to play out a little bit longer than that. And as it plays out, I think the advantage kind of lies with Zhang a little bit more so. So you have to favor her a little bit. That's what we did. And now the sharper bettors are coming in her way as well.
Yeah, and again, to your point that it might go longer, obviously it was a first-round stoppage by Thug Rose the first time around. People are banking on this fight, also a title fight, 5 rounds. Going deep into the New York City night. Are you seeing action go that way?
Yeah, we're seeing actually a lot of two-way action. There's a lot of split opinions here as well. So we are seeing some action on the over, but now we're seeing some sharp resistance coming in on the under as well. Because let's face it, I mean, in round 4 and round 5, even if it goes that long, Zhang I think is going to be able to kind of utilize her game plan and kind of bust Rose up on the feet a little bit and mark her up. And I think there's a potential stoppage on that side too. So we could see it stop early possibly or late, but I expect it as the fight progresses, they're going to get beat up a little bit.
And that's why you see that round prop there at 4.5 juice to the over at -120. So again, we are expecting both these fights, both title fights, to go long, which would be a surprise if they get stopped early. But again, we were surprised the first time around with Rose getting that first round stoppage. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper here on this card because I want to go down to a couple fights here, and I wonder if there's a lot of betting interest. I'll start off with Justin Gaichi against Michael Chandler here. I cannot wait to see this fight, Nick, right? It just it feels like stylistically it's going to be a showstopper for 3 rounds. Again, are you seeing more of the, I would say, the conditioned UFC fan now that they look forward to these fights just as much and show it by the betting number as they would the main events?
Absolutely. I mean, especially with 2 fighters like this, right? Gaichi is the human highlight reel, literally, right?
Yes.
And then Chandler on the other side of it, I mean, he sparks people left and right too. So this is going to be one of the most exciting fights on the card. I mean, there's going to be a knockout finish on either side here for sure. Somebody's going to get slept, and it's going to be an exciting fight. This is probably one of the most fan-friendly fights on the whole card, and we were just touching on the 2 title fights, which are going to be fantastic. So this is awesome. We are seeing more action coming in on Gaichi, though. Not a lot of respect on Chandler's side.
Wow, and it's interesting to me because, to your point, we just feel like even though it's a 3-round fight, that it's not going to go the distance here. So you see the total rounds set at a round and a half. Are you getting 2-way action here?
We are, and a lot of split opinions here as well. Because, I mean, let's face it, 7.5 minutes isn't a long time to go if you're an elite level fighter. They should be able to withstand each other, right? But again, we're talking about the power and the ability to finish fights at either side here. So that's where it's tempting, and a lot of people are coming on the under 1.5 as well. So we are going to continue to see like 2-way sharp action here because it's very difficult. I think it's going to be right around that mark, right? It might just get out of that first round. If it does get out of the first round, it ain't going to be too far into the second round.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it will. My dad taught me at a very young age, Nick, never bet with your heart, always bet with your head. Dad, I'm sorry. I apologize. I've never always followed that credo. So
Hard to do.
When you see a fighter like Frankie Edgar, the answer, right? People love Frankie Edgar, getting up there a little bit long in the tooth, taking on Marlon Vera here. What type of action are you seeing here? Because Frankie right now, plus 140 for the popular former champ.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the sharps out there are respecting Edgar, and we're seeing a little bit of action. This fight's not getting huge action. In comparison to some of the other fights that we were just talking about, this fight's kind of trending under the radar a little bit, despite Frankie Edgar being a legend, future Hall of Famer, all that stuff. I just think that a lot of people are not sure where he's at in his career right now, and it makes it tough, right? And Vera, of course, he's on the trending up, right?
Right.
He's going the other way, and Frankie Edgar might be kind of on the way out the door. Hopefully not, though, right? I mean, but if anybody could pull off a win like this, still, it's a guy like Frankie Edgar.
So I think that's being reflected in the price here, plus 140. There still is respect for Frankie Edgar because I kind of feel like Vera might be the right side. That number's not getting too big. I wonder if it gets bigger before Saturday night actually begins. One more fight in the main card. We got Billy Q taking on Shane Burgos here. We know Burgos, so he's had a rough couple outings here coming back in, so still a $2 favorite here over Billy Quarantillo. How do you handicap this one?
This one's tough, too, because I can understand Burgos being a favorite, but the price is a little tricky, especially like you just said, coming off that crazy knockout loss. That was brutal, man. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of knockouts like that, right? And Billy Q trending up as well. I mean, this guy's been on fire. His finish over Benitez in his last fight was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So this is going to be another fight that's just fantastic. And again, that's why I made the pay-per-view card, because it's going to be fireworks. So action-wise, though, we are seeing 2-way action. It's been bumped up a little bit. It's coming back down a little bit. So I think it's going to be another fight that continues to draw 2-way action.
Again, here at Circa, this is going to be over at Bar Canada, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you get these crowds in before the pay-per-view starts, do you see action then come in on the prelims? Or people like, oh, fights are on. I almost forgot before I get to the main event. How about the prelims? Do they start taking in some action?
Oh, for sure. They come, a lot of over-the-counter bets get made at that time as well. Yeah, when we're having the watch party, either at the warehouse or, like you said, Bar Canada, there are a lot of people that hit the counters real quick before they, sit down and get settled into their seats or whatnot. And we do see an uptick in action for sure.
So, of course, with that fight being in New York City, you still have a huge boxing event here with Caleb Plant taking on Canelo Alverez. What about the handle so far on that? Are you seeing a lot of action come in on the big favorite here?
Actually, we've seen a lot of heavy action, especially early on, coming on the underdog Plant, causing us to drop that line and play a little bit of defense, because it's one of those things. It's a high number. I mean, a championship bout, right? Both fighters are tremendous. Of course, Canelo, pound for pound, a lot of people believe he's the best fighter, best boxer on the planet right now. Hard to argue that.
Right.
So you got to respect that side. But we did see a lot of over-the-limit bets coming in on the underdog, causing us to drop the number. But now we are seeing some buyback on Canelo. A lot of parlays are coming in that way. So we're not as bad. But we had to be a little defensive early on.
And I guess that's the point, right? Is that people are going to go, I don't want to lay 1,000 on Canelo to win 100, right? So I'm going to put him in a bunch of parlays. Do you see mixed parlays with boxing and UFC now?
Oh, Usman and Canelo.
That's a very popular play.
It's probably one of the most popular parlays, of the weekend here, of course. And again, everybody's going to throw in their favorite NFL team or whatnot as well, right?
Yeah, why not? Make it go all across different sports here. So very quickly, we talked about this before, Nick, but it is fascinating to me because it's not that we're trying to make UFC the new kid on the block. It is boxing is still boxing, and we saw that with the heavyweight championship of the world, where you're still getting a massive volume of tickets when you get a big time prize fight. Is that still the case, even with a Canelo Alverez fight?
It is. I mean, his draw is phenomenal. I mean, it's awesome to see. I wish we had guys like this fighting a little bit more often, but I give Canelo a lot of respect because he is in the spotlight. He's not like shying away from fighting, not, you know what I mean? He's fighting a little bit more consistently than some of these other fighters are out there, so I like it, yeah. But he's still a huge draw, and a lot of attention comes into the sports book when he's fighting.
It's still Canelo Alvarez, even though we have a massive UFC 268 card. So again, you like boxing. I love it all. I like combat sports, so I'm not going to say you can do this one and not do that one. Let's do it all. Let's always have a good time. Nick, again, check it out. UFC on the line on UFC Fight Pass. Always appreciate you coming in and talking the line here.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, much more First Strike to get to. Breaking down every single angle of UFC 268 when you come back with us. It is First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you plenty of ways to get in on all the UFC 268 action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, and new users can bet $5 to win $200 on either main event fighter to win. Just use the code VSiN when you sign up to claim this exclusive offer. Eligibility restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full terms and conditions. Back here on First Strike, I am Dave Ross, and it is always a pleasure to have Amber Dixon join us right here in studio here in Circa as we talk all things UFC 268, and we'll sneak in some boxing because you were so well traveled. You recently did a fight down in Mexico, and you did some translation in the ring.
Yes, Spanish to English and then English to Spanish, a bit of both. For Roy Jones Jr., he has his own promotion, and their fights air on UFC Fight Pass down in Los Mochis is where we were.
Very impressive. I struggle with one language. That's all I have, and I try to
think you master it pretty well.
As well as I can. Let's talk about Kamaru Usman against Colby Covington here in the main event at UFC 268. At Madison Square Garden, Amber, because I'm very intrigued by this fight. We had Nick Kalikas just on the program here talking about setting this number, and it just kept getting bet up, and now it's north of $3 here at 320. Colby Covington, he's brash. He's not everybody's cup of tea. We know that. But right now, plus 250 on the buyback here. Do you have any interest? Can I intrigue you in Colby Covington at that plus price?
No, not at that price. You can't, but I would understand if people were willing to put down a little to win a lot in his situation because, according to most people, last fight between them was very close.
Yes.
But then you talk to some and they say, no, just look at how many strikes were landed, and Usman was able to thwart anything that Covington did, which isn't quite true. But I thought it was a close fight. I'd be looking more for the props in this situation, and I'm thinking Usman by KO.
By KO, so you can lower that 320 and then try to get the better value. Sure, I totally understand that logic. When I look at the props for the rounds here, and this is where it gets interesting to me. So you got 3.5 juice to the over here at minus 150. To your point about the first fight, and it is so funny, and this is what fighters do, right? So Colby Covington says, oh, you got saved by the referee stopping it in the 5th round. And Kamaru Usman's like, dude, I broke your jaw.
Your jaw.
And you had to have it wired shut. So the fight scripts don't always follow the same. You know this in boxing. Sometimes the rematches are not the same as the first fight. Do you anticipate this to be a long night in New York? Or do you think that under might have some value under 3.5 rounds?
Under may have some value. I think that Colby Covington thinks he has a plan of playing it a little bit safer. He talked about in his new camp having more head movement, learning when to pick his shots and about timing. But you mentioned the word brash, and I think once he gets in there and gets hit, which he will because Usman is so dang precise, then he's going to get angry and he's going to overreact, and then he'll probably do some stupid moves that'll end up perhaps getting his jaw broke again.
Oh boy. So again, that's what Colby Covington does. For those that don't know, he actually got kicked out of ATT, where they used to be training partners, Kamaru, Usman, and Colby Covington. Now he's with MMA Masters. So I know some people there at MMA Masters says that you might want to expect a little bit different Colby Covington this time. You might see the wrestling come back. But then again, Kamaru Usman is one of the best wrestlers in the world. So try to find that pathway for Colby to win. Good luck.
They're both great wrestlers. And so I thought in their first fight they would be on the ground, but they decided to stand up, and what a striking match it was.
Most bizarre thing. Two decorated wrestlers, we get two stand-up fighters in that fight. So again, you see the long odds there. But everywhere else you look, everything is just about equal. Usman does have that reach advantage there. That was evident in the first fight with the striking discrepancy here. And Usman, let's just call it what it is. He's gotten so much better with his hands as his reign. And right now you can make the case the best UFC fighter on the planet might be Kamaru Usman. So we'll find out how that goes. Let's go to the ladies and talk about Thug Rose against Weili Zhang here in the rematch here at 115 pounds. And you're seeing the money, it feels like, coming in on the Chinese challenger here in Zhang, who used to be the belt holder. Mm-hmm. Rose beat her in a first-round knockout, TKO stoppage here the last time out. What do you make of this rematch? Because it does feel like there's still a lot of respect now for the challenger.
Yes, from what I've understood, sharps are all over Wang, which is impressive for her, for Weili Zhang. That was kind of a fluke, according to the sharps, that last fight, that knockout loss via that head kick. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we saw that similar thing happen with Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, and Ronda Rousey was never the same after that. So for people to have so much faith in Weili Zhang coming back and being competitive, it surprises me a little. Granted, she will be competitive, but I can't ever go against Rose Namajunas.
No, it's hard to go against Thug Rose right now. To me, it's all about her headspace. When she is mentally there, I think she's the best woman on the planet at 115 pounds. But that's not always the case, right? And she talked about it when she lost to Jessica Andrade in her first title defense in Brazil. She said, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And you could feel it. It feels like she's wearing it better the second time around. But again, she's technically never defended that crown. Let's see if she can do it on Saturday night. Again, to the fight script here, when you look at the over-under, and again, it was a first-round stoppage the last time. So people are going to go, wow, it's not going to go the distance. It's not going to go over 4.5. You think it goes over 4.5?
Oy, this one is so hard because I think of Zhang and the power that she has. It's so thudding. But what I like more about Rose is her movement. Both women are so tough that, yes, they can take it the distance, but shoot, they have so many wins by stoppage too. I don't know which one to go on that one.
It's a tough one for me as well, because it just feels like they've over-adjusted now to get to 4.5 and juice to the over at -120. I go, boy, first one ended so quickly, but you understand that they do think it's going to be a different stylistic matchup, and watch for Zhang to try to wrestle as well.
Yes.
As what we believe to be theoretically the stronger woman in the octagon, to try to take this fight down to the ground. If that happens, then the fight script for the over might make more sense.
Yes, and I also think she's been training with Henry Cejudo, and I think he's got a lot in her head that may be too much to learn for one fight, and she may be slowed down by that aspect of trying to overthink it.
Call him the messenger for a reason. He's sending out messages. Let's see if she receives those messages. All right, when you look at the main card here, again, the fight that just grabs my eye, and I know it grabs fight fans' eyes out there, is the highlight, Justin Gaichey against Michael Chandler here. Chandler comes over from Bellator, and he destroys Dan Hooker, and he's going to be the guy. Then looks like he's got Charles Oliveira beat to be the champ, right? And somehow that fight doesn't get finished in the first round. He loses in the second round. And now a relatively big dog at +175. Have they forgotten? Or is this just love and respect for the highlight that is Justin Gaichey?
And you know what? I have not ever really had a whole lot of love or respect for Justin Gaichey. Nothing personal.
Yeah.
But his style, I when you are based in wrestling and then you begin trying to be a boxer and knocking everybody out, he's had success at it. But then we saw him go up against Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the all-time greats.
Didn't end well.
Oh, gosh, he was embarrassed, you know. But then we saw the same thing with Michael Chandler going up against competition that, well, just was a little bit out of his league, even though he did do well. So now I guess we can all agree on that this is going to end in a knockout, right? This is not going to go the distance.
You would think that. And again, you see that there, that the total rounds here at 1.5, right? So it's right there in the middle, because nobody thinks this fight's going to go the distance. So you know what's going to happen. Probably going to go the
It'll
distance.
Go the distance.
And that's the thing. Like, Gaichi is so tough in that he can take punishment, which is not the best fight script anymore for Justin Gaichi. He gets a little bit longer in the tooth, right? But Chandler doesn't go the distance. This is a guy that even when he gets stopped and he gets stopped in the second round, he either gets stopped or stops. And normally he's doing the stopping.
Yes.
And these fights normally don't go whatever the length is, and this one being a 3-round fight here. So I think most people think it will be stopped inside that round and a half. But to me, it's more of a coin toss rather than Gaichi being that big of a favorite.
Well, and both of their last fights were finished within the first round and a half. But yes, when you show all those props, I think the most value is Gaichi by KO.
By KO.
Yeah, I think he's the smarter fighter. He's been in there against, Habib Nurmagomedov. Let's see what he's learned from that. And can he play it cool, be smart, weather the storm of Michael Chandler, and then...
All I know is on Twitter, it gets all the fire emojis I can put out or fireworks emoji. That fight is just going to be sick.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little boxing here, Amber, while we do have you here. And let's talk about Canelo against Caleb Plant here. And again, we had Nick Kalikas on. And Nick said they're seeing a lot of action come in on the challenger here, now down to plus 600. Does he have a real shot to pull the upset against Canelo?
I don't see it. Who are these people that are putting this money down on him?
Right.
And it's not on a prop. It's just based on purely who's going to win.
And I guess they go for the undefeated, that sort of thing, and the invincibility. You haven't been beaten yet.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, is that Caleb Plant may be undefeated, but his resume is lacking. He just has not gone up against anybody all that impressive. His last fight was January this year against Caleb Truax, who's no Canelo, and Caleb Truax gave him problems and landed plenty of right hands, which Canelo has a great right hand. I think this will go over 9.5 rounds. That's the total, correct?
Okay, yeah, so you're going to go over the posted total.
I am going to go over.
But you're not backing the undefeated Plant.
No, and I've known him ever since he moved to Las Vegas with the claim, I'm coming here to become world champion, and so many guys say that they're going to do that, and he actually did, but this is just different levels of competition. It's like a Ferrari and a Mustang.
All right, he's got his shot on Saturday night. Amber, always great to have you in studio. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah.
Much more First Strike. Reed Kuhn joins us on the other side of this break. It is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Back here on First Strike on VSiN, I'm your host, Dave Ross. It is always a pleasure to be joined by Reed Kuhn, talking all things UFC 268. Reed breaks things down from a very analytical standpoint, and that's why I love having him on the program because, as we always say, the numbers do not lie, Reed, and you do a great job running those numbers. Let's talk about it and get right to it. I'm trying to find anybody that can say that Colby Covington at plus 250 is a live dog. Are your models backing me, or are they saying, no, 320 is not too big a number to lay?
Somewhere in between, unfortunately. We definitely backed Usman when they first fought, and the price was a little bit more affordable. And this time the price opened up basically where the last one closed and then steamed from there. So this time he steamed. I'm seeing him minus 300 all over the place. He's flirting with that area where I don't really see a lot of value in a straight up play, to be honest. Covington is still a dangerous guy. I don't see him having advantages here that can offer him the fight unless he's changed his fighting style. And Usman has been surviving, I think, against more dangerous strikers than Covington with his last several fights. So, what Covington brings to the table is very effective. Normally he has a wrestling advantage, and normally his high pressure game actually works, and it just puts people in retreat mode. But that's not going to work against Usman. Usman probably has a wrestling advantage, not that we're going to see much of it. He's the harder striker. He's more accurate. And even when he's backpedaling, he's going to have the power. So I definitely see Usman here. But at the current price, based purely on the numbers, we're not seeing a lot of value, but still not enough to go with the underdog.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Reed, that I look at it and say, hopefully the training switch to MMA Masters for Colby Covington. The word I'm getting is we are going to try to see that wrestling being engaged here. But to your point, Usman might even have the advantage on the ground if it does get down there. Are your models pointing to anything else that might have some more value in this main event here if you're trying to find a different way than just laying the 320?
Well, if you're working on the presumption that Usman's going to be kind of in the driver's seat most of this fight, the question is will his power eventually pile up like it did last time? He got the finish last time. It was close. It was kind of a buzzer beater, but also, broke Covington's jaw allegedly even earlier in the fight. So really, it's more of a will he or won't he get the knockout, in my opinion, and it's a close call. Not sure where the props stand on that. I think my approach is just I'm going to be looking for another safe play and mixing in Usman and maybe a two-way parlay, but that's probably the only angle I see here.
Yeah, it's a great call because, again, the total round's 3.5. If you think that Covington can withstand it for 5 rounds, maybe Usman by decision at plus 165 could be a way to go. But to your point, Reed, he did get that stoppage in that 5th round, and right now he's been stopping everybody. Ask Jorge Masvidal, ask Gilbert Burns. I mean, they're just dropping like flies against this guy. So if you take that wager at the decision, enter at your own risk. Let's talk about the co-main event here at 115 pounds. Rose Namajunas going to put her belt on the line in a rematch against Zhang Weili here. And it feels like Weili right now is getting a lot of the action coming her way. Reed, what are you seeing when you run those models?
Yeah, it's a close matchup. We definitely backed Rose in the first fight, and I think she was still an underdog. It was interesting this week. I thought she was a favorite early on. Today I look, now she's a ever so slight underdog. Maybe the line's flipped. Who knows where it lands on fight night? She does have some fan support, but I think the same dynamics are in play here. Nothing's changed from the last fight. Now Zhang maybe is training in a new camp and changing her style, but it's really Zhang's pressure volume. It's kind of a Covington versus Usman situation. We got Rose being the more powerful striker, the more dangerous striker, but Zhang being high volume. But in this case, I think the difference on the mat also favors Rose. She clearly has a better submission game, and I think people have forgotten about that. So she can finish this on the feet. She can finish it on the ground. If she gets into a point striking fight for 5 rounds, that's where I see Zhang maybe swaying a few rounds, and that's where it's dangerous. But I still see value on Rose, especially at even or plus money.
You're right now at plus 105 here. And again, when you look at Rose by decision, it's plus 300. And we're seeing the rounds prop here, Reed, 4.5, right? And by the way, slightly juiced to the over at minus 120. And that first fight did not last very long at all. Is this an overreaction that people just assume will get the fight this time that they thought they were going to get the first time?
Yeah, that might be it. It's weird to see reactions in rematches because when you're evaluating a rematch, one of two things needs to change your opinion. Either you think something fluky happened in the first fight, or one fighter has made significant adjustments and the other one has faded. And I don't really see either of those factors at play here because I saw Namajunas as the more dangerous power striker in the first matchup, and she did it. And I think she was also winning up until that head kick. So she looked great in the last fight. I don't think we see anything different here. So she still has the finishing threat. I just don't want her to get into a cardio burner with Zhang because we've seen that she can put her foot on the gas and actually go 5 rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. The fight, obviously, Joanna Young Jacek, one of the best fights we've ever seen at 115 pounds, to your point, Reed. Let's talk about the real estate guy that's fighting. That's Al Iaquinta, right? And he's getting some plus money here, plus 155 against Bobby Green. And look, Bobby Green just doesn't fight dull fights here, so he's minus 180. Stylistically, it feels like an interesting matchup. What are you seeing in the models?
Yeah, the numbers really like Bobby Green here, and I was a little bit surprised to see how much they like him. Iaquinta, kind of a grinder, 2 levels, boxes well, but also is willing to wrestle, has that base. And Bobby Green can be a frustrating fighter to watch. He's constantly shaking his head, talking to his opponent, pretending that he's not hurt. And he'll do that right up until the point of unconsciousness like he did against Dustin Poirier. But it is kind of effective. I don't know what it is about the riddle of fighting Bobby Green, but he is hard to hit, harder to hit than Iaquinta. And Bobby Green is a more accurate striker. So you combine those two things. I think if they are just in a point striking game, he edges those rounds. And I don't see, I'm hoping that he keeps Iaquinta chasing. Iaquinta, probably his best chance is to drag Green down and just be in top control. I do see this going the distance. I'm not seeing a lot of finishing potential on either side really, but the numbers really like Bobby Green here.
All right, that's interesting too, because I'm with you on that. I think the fight script plays out that way, that you're going to see Iaquinta chasing and try to make this a wrestling contest, and Bobby's going to move as he always does. So I tend to agree with you there. Might want to take that play that this fight would go the distance here. Let's talk about Frankie Edgar, because look, it's intriguing when you get some guys that former champions, and certainly there's a love affair with Frankie Edgar in that crowd at New York City, that's for sure. Plus money against Marlon Vera. What are you seeing here when you run those models?
Yeah, I'd rather back Edgar as an underdog than as a favorite. He certainly has been a value play for a long, long time. I think there was an analysis I ran years ago on if you just bet on every fighter in the UFC blindly like they were a stock price, who would have returned the best value? And Frankie Edgar was one of those guys. He went in, manhandled BJ Penn, just looked unstoppable at lightweight, no less. And here he is now 20 pounds lighter. So he's an interesting guy from people underestimating him. And wrestling is, maybe underestimated, but he doesn't always use it. And that's gotten him into some trouble, I think. The numbers do like the value here on Edgar. I would play him at plus money. I'm hoping that he wrestles, because that is the advantage. Marlon Vera has not been particularly good on the ground in terms of wrestling anyway, in terms of control. He does have submissions, but Edgar's been there before. He's been, fighting dangerous people and grinding them down. I'm just hoping that Edgar survives the boxing long enough. He does have decent hands. It's not that Vera is technically dangerous. He's wily. He's unorthodox. He has power. He's scored knockdowns. At this point, Frankie Edgar, 40 years old, he's been dropped 8 times in his career. You don't see that number very often because people don't make it to that number very often. So that is dangerous. And we saw that in his last fight against Sandhagen. He took the knee. He was out cold. So barring another flying knee, will lightning strike twice? I don't know. But I hope that Edgar just turns this into a grinder, fights his fight, and takes it to a decision and gets the upset.
Yeah, I think most people, he's certainly going to have the crowd in his corner on Saturday night at Madison Square Garden. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Justin Gaichey and Michael Chandler. It feels like outside of the 2 title fights, this is the fight that really is the most highly anticipated fight of the evening here. I was surprised to see Gaichey this big a favorite here over Chandler. What are the numbers telling you?
Yeah, it doesn't really qualify for modeling purposes because Chandler hasn't had enough time in the octagon. He's only had 2 fights, and they were pretty short fights at that. So this doesn't really qualify for usual numerical analysis. I will say both guys have shown power. Chandler, I'm surprised. When he loses, he has been knocked out quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And in a fight with Gaichey, you have to overwhelm him. He has a chin that is crazy, and he hits you so hard and makes you pay for that strike. So in a shootout, I think I like the durability of Gaichey better to be the difference. They're both going to hit hard, just which guy is going to withstand it better. Gaichey, you also get those crazy leg kicks. Again, not a purely quantitative assessment. My lean is Gaichey here based on the durability. I am, like you, probably like everybody, expecting fireworks, and probably someone's getting knocked out eventually.
Yeah, absolutely cannot wait for that fight. And again, the over-under set at 1.5 rounds in that 3-round fight. I don't think anybody expects this to go to the distance, which means it'll probably go the distance. Reed Kuhn, always appreciate the time and the information, and certainly your analysis. We'll catch you next week right here on First Strike. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you plenty of ways to get in on all of the UFC 268 action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, and new users can bet $5 to win $200 on either main event fighter to simply win. Just use the code VEASAN when you sign up to claim this exclusive offer. Eligibility restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full terms and conditions. Dave Ross back here on First Strike on VEASAN. A pleasure to have Jordan Sherwood rejoin the program. Jordan, always great to catch up with you at ESPN Chicago. Is it getting cold back home in Chicago these days?
Yeah, just a little bit. A couple of kids that have never seen snow, so they don't know what's coming in the next couple of months. But nonetheless, still doing okay, enjoying some, I guess, nice fall weather as we head towards the back half of the year, if you will.
Well, it's going to be on fire Saturday night at Madison Square Garden in New York
Yeah.
City. So let's get right to it, Jordan, because I can't wait for this card. Obviously, when you have Kamaru Usman going up against Colby Covington here and Rose Namajunas taking on Zhang Weili here in the two main events here for belts on the line, let's talk about Usman against Covington, because we've seen the money obviously still come in on the Nigerian Nightmare here at minus 320, a huge number. Jordan, is there any chance and any value that you see potentially in the underdog?
I mean, look, he's an outstanding fighter, and he's probably rightfully the number 2 or number 1 fighter at 170 pounds. And I've heard some analysts say that, yes, Colby Covington is certainly worth a look if it trends up to plus 290, plus 300. But in my opinion, this is a stay away fight for me, at least from a betting perspective, unless you believe, Usman's going to get the finish again. Kamaru Usman is, in my mind, one of the best fighters we have, not just currently in the UFC, but maybe of all time. I mean, he's getting close to the record set by George St. Pierre in the welterweight division, both for wins consecutively and title defenses. I mean, this is one of the best fighters that we've ever seen, and he's only getting better. He is, between the two of them, at least if you look on paper at the last couple of fights that each of them have had since they last fought, Usman's 20 times better than when he was fighting against Colby Covington. So I think Kamaru Usman wins the fight. But again, at a $3.20 price, it's not worth the value unless you believe that he gets the finish. And I'm not sold on that. I think that, yes, he did get the finish the last time against Covington. I'm not sure it happens again. I'm picking the over. I'm picking Usman to retain, but I think I just stay away and enjoy the fight of two of the top fighters at 170.
Absolutely. Jordan, to that fight script there, would you then be entertained by Usman by decision to get the plus value at plus 165 if you don't necessarily think that he gets the stoppage, but that Colby can't win on points? Would that be the best way to maximize your betting dollar if you wanted to back the Nigerian Nightmare?
Yeah, I think so. And granted, we've seen Usman get the finish the last couple of times that he's been in the octagon. He looked impressive, obviously, in that knockout over Jorge Masvidal. But I think this is a fight that he's going to be, a little bit cautious, tentative in the early rounds, see what Colby Covington's going to bring to the table, and certainly utilize what he's learned from Trevor Whitman, his new coaching staff, at Elevation Fight Team. And granted, too, I think factors in. You've got two other fighters on this main card also in training camp, including the champion Rose Namajunas. So I think that's an advantage for Kamaru Usman. And yeah, plus value on decision, probably the direction that I would go in this one.
Yeah, Trevor Whitman's got 3 fighters on the main card. It's going to be a very busy night for Trevor as well. So let's talk about Thug Rose, as you mentioned, as she tries to get her first title defense against the woman she beat to get the crown, and that is Zhang Weili here. But it feels like Weili is getting a little bit of the action here in the love, as she is now the small favorite at minus 125. What do you make of this line adjustment?
Yeah, I'm actually not surprised. I mean, this is who Rose Namajunas is. She's always disrespected. She's always coming in as that underdog. And, once again, is a defending champion, of one that finished, Zhang Weili in the first round of their last fight. Yeah, an unbelievable head kick, doesn't get the respect that she deserves. I'm probably going to wait until fight night, close to the action, grab the underdog, whomever it is, because I think both of these ladies stylistically match up great. I don't see either one really having an advantage, no matter where. I guess technically you go with Rose Namajunas from a striking standpoint because of her reach, because of the variety that she brings in. But Weili's got a better puncher, power puncher. So I think I wait. So I guess as that line currently stands, Rose Namajunas would be the play because she's the underdog heading into this fight. But it should be a fantastic fight nonetheless. I'm going to lean towards the underdog, whoever it is, come fight night.
All right, talking with Jordan Sherwood, ESPN Chicago. Let's talk more about UFC 268 because the card is just electric, Jordan. And let's stay with, I got to think that Frankie Edgar at Madison Square Garden, not too far from his Jersey roots. It's going to be a big home field advantage, if you will, against Marlon Vera here. But Vera is the favorite at minus 160. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, forget the age difference between the two guys. I love Frankie Edgar in this fight. I think this is a similar matchup to the last time that he won, which was against Pedro Munoz. in a main event fight at bantamweight. Frankie doesn't look good the last time out. Obviously, when you get knocked out via flying knee from Corey Sandhagen 15 seconds into a fight, you're not going to look good. But the combination of still his variety of striking, the speed that he fights with, point fighter, and Marlon Vera, he's obviously been in the headlines. He got a lot of love for his victory over Sugar Sean O'Malley a couple of fights back. Not a guy that really pulls the trigger at times when he should. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I think this is going to be a fight that Frankie Edgar can win at distance and via points, and he have to utilize his grappling, his wrestling. He still can, and he's still got speed at 40 years of age. So I think it's recency bias for the two guys. It puts Vera as the favorite, Edgar as the underdog. I still like Frankie Edgar. I think he can compete with the upper echelon of this in this division. Quite frankly, Marlon Vera is not in the upper echelon of this division. So I'll grab Frankie Edgar, the former champion, at plus money for sure. I think he gets his hand raised. And you're right. Fighting in Madison Square Garden, something else for Frankie Edgar to hold his hat high on. I love him as the underdog tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, look, people can say, well, that doesn't matter. You can only have one person inside that octagon. You do feel that. He's going to feel it Saturday night. That is for sure. I know that two guys, when they get done fighting, are going to feel it no matter how it breaks down, and that's Justin Gaichey against Michael Chandler. And Jordan, I look at this fight, and I just go, there's no way this can't be exciting, right? I mean, we just know, from a fight script standpoint, it's going to be a fan favorite here. Justin Gaichey is a fan favorite, right?
I mean, look, but you say that though, and then you think back to Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, and that was the worst fight in UFC history. So yeah, this should be a banger. This should be a fantastic fight. Two guys actually that have some animosity. Two guys that want to put themselves right back in the mix in the lightweight division for a championship title shot. Both guys coming off of losses in title fights, need something to prove. Both guys wrestling backgrounds, power punchers. I'm going to say Gaichey wins this fight. I think he's got more variety. He's got the bigger, the better chin of the two. But I think the better play, the safer play, is on the round total. I'll take the under. I don't think there's a feeling out period at all between these two guys. I think you're going to go in and both of them are going to try and knock each other's block off. And I'll grab Justin Gaichey. He's more familiar with those firefights. He's more familiar with getting into the pocket. And Chandler's going to have to get that. He's going to have to take one to give one. It's not a recipe you like against a guy like Justin Gaichey, who can take one to give two. So I like Justin Gaichey, but $2, $2.25, not worth it for me. So I'll just grab the under at $1.15. That's the price. That's the play that I love for tomorrow night.
I love that rationale because, again, you're getting two fighters that are knockout specialists for the price of one to take that under instead of laying the bigger number on Gaichey against Chandler, because I think this is a dangerous opponent here. And Michael Chandler almost had Charles Oliveira stopped in that title fight. And then, of course, Oliveira got the stoppage in the second round. It's going to be crazy. Very quickly, have about a minute to go here, Jordan. Is there another fight on this card that you think from maybe a monetary standpoint that you can find some real value in?
Yeah, Chris Barnett. I mean, look, I liked him in his heavyweight fight against John Vellante. And then now I'm hearing John Vellante is going to retire after this fight. Look, and I know it's a coin flip sometimes when guys announce their retirement prior to a fight. You hear rumors about it. But this guy Vellante gave up a couple of fights back when he moved from light heavyweight to heavyweight. He's looked lethargic. He's looked out of shape. He's lost to two heavyweight fighters that currently aren't in the UFC. Barnett's a fun fighter. He's an active heavyweight. And albeit he lost his UFC debut against Ben Rothwell on short notice, by the way. I think Barnett wins. I think he wins via knockout violently. And John Vellante retires. Good for him. He's been a fun fighter during his career. But I'll take Chris Barnett, especially as an underdog. I mean, he's got knockout power, so I'll grab him. Certainly some value there.
Yeah, getting that plus money there at plus 110. Jordan Sherwood, great time conversating about UFC 268 as always. ESPN Chicago. Get ready for those winter months, my friend. We'll catch up again soon.
All right, yeah, it's going to be a long winter by the way the Bears play. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
That's why we're going to watch that UFC fight on Saturday night. Thanks to Nick Kalikas, to Amber Dixon, to Reed Kuhn, and to Jordan Sherwood. Thanks for watching First Strike right here on VSiN. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next week.